latest ITV News in the Tyne Tees region with Amy Lee and Ian Payne. Hello there, good evening. Welcome to ITV News Tyne Tees. Tonight's headlines.
Accountable to the highest level. A full public inquiry is announced into the failings and fatalities at our region's biggest mental health trust.
Wasn't expected, hoped for, but wasn't expected.
And just joy, to be honest, knowing that, like we said, there's going to be that change that's needed.
3 men are jailed for life over the murder of an innocent grandfather in his home in County Durham.
Brighter future. The Energy Minister is in Northumberland saying offshore renewable jobs could double in the coming years.
And weekend warm-up. Newcastle United can turn their eyes to the Wear Tyne derby as they leave Leverkusen with honours even. First tonight, and it's the moment that families of those who died as a result of failings at our region's biggest health trust have been fighting for years. The announcement of a full public inquiry into their deaths.
The Health Secretary met today in Darlington with those who lost loved ones under the care of Tees, Esk and Wear Valley's NHS Trust to deliver the news.
After many years of pain for the families, the announcement marks a new chapter, one that they say they are able to welcome. Our health correspondent Helen Ford reports.
Hope has been in short supply for these families, but they carried it with them as they arrived for their meeting with the Health Secretary who travelled to Darlington. And within minutes of the session beginning, they learned that their wish for a public inquiry into the Tees, Esk and Wear Valley's NHS Foundation Trust had been granted. Mr. Streeting, what persuaded you that a public inquiry is required?
It's a combination of factors that have led me to believe this is the right thing to do. It's the fact that there are far too many examples of not just negligence and failure, unavoidable harm and loss of life, and that unimaginable grief that these families are going through is the culture of cover-up. And it's the fact that there has been no accountability. It's also the fact that for all of the reports that have been done over many years now, we are not seeing this trust improve with a scale and pace that I think the scale of the challenge demands.
So what changes for the families of patients who died? Christy Harnett took her own life at the age of 17 while a patient at the former West Lane Hospital in Middlesbrough in 2019. The Tees, Esk and Wear Valley's Trust was later fined for failing to provide safe care and treatment for Christy and a second patient who died at another hospital.
So having this to go forward, there's just going to be that massive change in the trust in general and for all patients going forward, so that hopefully they don't have to go through what we have.
Yeah, the future will be, fingers crossed, totally different. That things will absolutely change and there will be clarity and openness in hospitals, especially for the mental health patients, because that's been severely lacking. We always said we're going to fight for justice, and a statutory public inquiry will bring us the justice because it will bring about change.
Yeah. She always wanted to become a mental health nurse herself once she recovered so that she could help people.
A series of investigations and reports have previously been carried out into the workings of the Trust, but families have long argued that a statutory public inquiry is the only way to, as one put it, leave no stone unturned, not least because it would compel staff past and present to give evidence. The families first put their case to Wes Streeting in February. At that stage, he promised to respond in the spring. Despite the wait, the mother of one young man who died told me of her relief and hopes for the process that lies ahead. It's 7 years since Victor Scott Brown took his life at the age of 23. Treated in the community, his inquest heard he hadn't been warned about the potential side effects of new medication he was prescribed. Those side effects included thoughts of self-harm or suicide.
Nick and I have campaigned and fought for many years for honesty, and we just don't feel that that's been forthcoming. Again, those individuals that were involved just failed to be transparent. For them now to be compelled to attend an inquiry and answer questions, difficult questions, and be compelled to be honest would be a huge sense of relief for our family.
The thing about a public inquiry is that it leaves no stone unturned. It compels people to give evidence under oath, including people who sought to escape accountability. And I'm only sorry that it's taken this long to come back and to report back to families that this is what we're going to be doing. Families are now going to be involved throughout. They're going to be involved in helping me select a chair. They're going to be involved in shaping the terms of reference. And if there's one thing I'm glad of today, it's that these families might sleep a little easier tonight, and some of the people responsible for the negligence and the failure might sleep a little less well tonight.
A public inquiry will take time to be established, to hear evidence and then to report its findings. It's a process these families are more than willing to accept in their long fight for answers.
It's a very significant day for many people. Helen is in Darlington for us. Helen, what more precisely will be the purpose of the public inquiry?
Well, public inquiries are set up to answer some of those really how and why issues were allowed to take blame, and crucially, how can they be prevented from happening again? Now, while we know is happening in this case, there are still
we've got some technical difficulties linking up with Helen. This is far too important a subject for you to only receive half of the story in preparation for that eventuality. We do know that Helen was going to tell us about the public inquiry in this case. Although it's been confirmed, many details still need to be worked out. The Teesside MP Andy MacDonald was in the meeting today with the Health Secretary and the families, and he explained to us how families will be involved in shaping precisely what happens next.
There will be that conversation with the families about the terms of reference and how it is chaired. Is it going to be an experienced medical person, a mental health specialist, or is it going to be somebody with judicial authority and experience? So that's a conversation that will take place between the department and the families, and they'll help to shape that.
Well, this evening, the Chief Executive of Tees, Esk and Wear Valleys Trust sent her deepest sympathy to everyone affected by the loss of life. She said, with the public inquiry now confirmed, we will fully support the process with transparency, openness and humility. Above all, we are committed to listening, reflecting and taking meaningful action to ensure that we continually improve as an organisation. And many hours of discussions and examinations lie ahead in this case, and for families of those who died, it is a bittersweet moment. Of course, some very difficult subject matter in this story, so you can find links to help and support, if you wish, on our website, along with some added insight from our reporter Katie Cole, who has also been following this story for the past few years.
Next tonight, 3 men have been jailed for between 26 and 32 years after an innocent grandfather was shot dead in his own home in a case of mistaken identity.
60-year-old Barry Dawson was murdered in Stanley in County Durham in April. He was shot by Sean Ray, who was trying to settle a score with another man. Ray was accompanied by henchmen Kelvin Lawson and Thomas Sterling. Another 2 men who were cleared of murder were also jailed after admitting perverting the course of justice.
Let's join our correspondent Rachel Bullock, who's been following this case for us. And Rachel, the judge scathing in his assessment of these men.
Yes, that's right. 60-year-old Barry Dawson was a family man. He'd been working a night shift And so he was fast asleep in bed on the afternoon of April the 5th this year when he was woken by the sound of windows being smashed. He went downstairs to investigate, and in an attack caught on footage you may find disturbing, he was shot dead. An ordinary street, no ordinary day. The gunman, Sean Ray, insisted he'd never meant to kill anybody that day, that he'd only planned to frighten another man inside the house. So why load the gun with live bullets?
If their defence was to be believed, that they went there to frighten the male that they were in dispute with, there was no need to discharge a firearm at any point. The fact that you take a loaded, viable handgun is a clear statement of intent.
Unemployed Ray tried to convince the jury that he was a quiet man who spent his days at home drinking and playing computer games. But his story was torn apart in court, because hours before the murder, Ray had been in a violent argument with a man who'd threatened to burn his house down. Hell-bent on revenge, Ray gathered a posse of his 4 most trusted friends. The gang of 5 drove to Barry Dawson's home on Elm Street, where they suspected Ray's enemy might be hiding. Kelvin Lawson and Thomas Sterling first smashing the windows before Lawson returns seconds later with Ray.
There's 2 people stood in the front room. Sean Ray has shot the person who he thinks is the person he's in dispute with. And it's not, it's Barry Dawson. And as we've already said, Barry was simply investigating the sound of breaking glass at his address, as everybody else in the country would do. He felt affronted that someone has been and threatened him. He's attended that address to demonstrate that nobody disrespects Sean Ray.
That footage only shows the terrible moment Sean Ray fired the gun. Its longer version, played in court, captures the minutes running up to it, and it reveals Sean Ray, balaclava on, hood up, striding out of this alley to confront neighbours who'd come out of their own houses to see what the commotion was. Ray goes up to one of them and holds the gun into the neighbour's face, ordering him back into his own house. Just yards away, children are playing on the street. Ray then turns to commit murder.
It's a bright, sunny, warm April afternoon. And what's worse is that there's young children, as in really young children, toddlers, cycling past. It's horrifying for the local community.
After the attack, the gang went drinking until news spread across Stanley that the shooting was in fact a murder. Ray, Lawson and Sterling fled, boarding a train to Edinburgh. Once there, Lawson texted his mother asking for money. She refused. With no cash and no plan, he and Sterling returned to Stanley and were arrested. Gunman Ray travelled to Northern Ireland, but was arrested a week later. Keith and Kevin Dorwood's plan to burn out the getaway car and destroy evidence failed because the car's windows had been left closed, stopping the blaze from taking hold. The vehicle led the police straight to the gang. Sean Ray was sentenced to 32 years, Kelvin Lawson to 28 years, and Thomas Sterling 26 years for the murder of Barry Dawson. The judge told the men that they turned an ordinary street into something usually only seen in films or on television, and even then, rarely in this country. Cousins Kevin Dorwood and Keith Dorwood were jailed for 20 months and 16 months respectively after admitting perverting the course of justice. Sending the men down, the judge said Barry Dawson, known affectionately as Buck, had been torn away from his family, a loss they must live with every day. Well, the judge told the 3 men who he jailed for murder that they'd lived their lives by a criminal code which viewed the police as the enemy, and he said that it was that code which had led those 3 men to take the law into their own hands after Sean Ray had been threatened hours before the murder. He told the 3 men that they now had decades ahead of them behind bars to consider just how well that criminal code had really served them, time which he said Barry Dawson's family will no doubt spend mourning the loss of a wholly innocent and much loved father and grandfather.
Rachel, in Middlesbrough tonight, thank you.
You're watching ITV News Tyne Tees. Still to come on tonight's programme.
Newcastle share the points in Germany after a 2-2 draw by Leverkusen. There's just days to go until the derby.
And in the weather, it wasn't too bad today, and it's looking fairly favourable for Friday as well, but all downhill over the weekend with a warning for heavy rain in force. All the details coming up shortly.
Next tonight, with unemployment on the rise, could green jobs pave the way to a brighter future?
The Energy Minister, Ed Miliband, has been in Northumberland today meeting bosses in the renewables sector, hoping that that will be the case.
He says our region's leading role in offshore could mean the number of jobs in that industry could be doubled in the coming years, as our Northumberland correspondent Tom Barton reports.
Gearing up to start work, testing was underway at the brand new JDR Cables factory in Camas near Blythe today. Soon they'll be turning copper wire into huge undersea cables, connecting offshore wind farms to the national grid. Here to check on progress, Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, seeing the machinery and meeting the staff, including some of the young apprentices.
I've always loved engineering as a whole, just in life in general, but I've also loved engineering drawing. And I think just engineering drawing is just the perfect job for me, so I just went for it. It's my dream job, and I'm just so happy I got it at such a young age as well.
This huge £130 million factory, just one of a number of investments making the North East a leading light in the green energy industry.
We can see that offshore renewables is driving huge amounts of job growth. We're adding 170 roles here at JDR, but we've got lots of other businesses that are also seeking to grow their workforces. It's also, as we transition from fossil fuels to renewables over the next few decades, there's transitioning of roles as well, from those in the oil and gas sector moving into renewables. So there's a great opportunity to capitalise on that transition as well and to be the leaders in that.
A sign of the industry's potential, a jobs fair for young people today, with businesses across the renewables sector. Ed Miliband hoping that he can turn his promises on the potential of green jobs into a reality.
We're going to double the number of clean energy jobs by 2030. That across the country, that's another 400,000 clean energy jobs. This is probably the fastest growing potential we've got as a country and indeed as a region. And so we want to absolutely double down on this. And I accept our responsibility to do everything we can to ensure that we have that employment.
The Jobs Fair, the first in a series being organised by the North East's Mayor over the coming months.
Green energy is already completely critical for our region. We've got 25,000 people already putting food on the table every single day because of a job in renewable energy, whether that's in offshore wind and solar, whether it's in battery technology. All of those jobs already exist, and we know we can double that number. The fact of the matter is, we will transition away from fossil fuels. We're running out. These businesses know that. They're already doing it. We want to grab the opportunity with both hands.
Green energy potentially revolutionising the region's job market. Tom Barton, ITV News, Northumberland.
Next tonight, North East Labour MP is predicting her party will get a battering in the local elections in May. On tonight's Around the House, Tyneside MP Mary Glindon says that she hopes that scrapping the two-child benefit cap will help get the party back on track.
That's where our values are, about caring for the most vulnerable and looking after working people. And I hope that we can turn the tide, because it has been a hard year. It's been a hard year for politicians, Labour politicians locally and nationally. I won't pretend that we haven't been quite disillusioned.
And you can see the full debate on Around the House at 10:45. It's on after the late news.
The ITV Evening News continues at 6:30.
Coming up on the programme, the NHS says it's facing its worst case scenario as cases of superflu surge. Cases in hospitals have jumped by 55% in a week, but NHS bosses say there's still no peak in sight. The Christmas tradition nobody wants, the size of festive favourite treats, shrinks yet again as prices continue to rise. And
Sometimes speaking to strangers does pay off. The couple who met on a train and got engaged on the same service a year later. Do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Right, Simon's joined us for the sport, and it's the Weir Tyne derby on Sunday. But it was the Champions League for Newcastle United last night, and Simon, it went okay.
I certainly thought so. 2-2 away in Germany against Bayer Leverkusen, and for me, the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. Regrets? They'll have a few, without doubt, because the Magpies conceded another late goal and missed out on a win. But Newcastle United are still masters of their own destiny in this season's Champions League. In the future, this might look like a pretty good result. In the moment, it stung a bit because Newcastle were close to a very good result. But never forget, this is the Champions League.
When we started the Champions League campaign, if we thought it was going to be easy, I think we're in the wrong competition. You're playing very, very good teams. We're travelling with the game schedule that we've got. All these things you add together makes it a challenging period for us, but I think the players are navigating it really well.
They navigated some parts of this game really well, other parts not so well. Set pieces are a problem for the Magpies at the moment, and Leverkusen scored from one. Then the hosts were given a penalty, which was correctly taken away by VAR.
That was, a big moment for us. That gave us the stability maybe we needed. The second half was a lot better.
It was a lot better. The catalyst was a brain fade from the Leverkusen goalkeeper that gave away a penalty, and Anthony Gordon is very good at penalties. Anthony Gordon was good at a lot of things in the second half. He hit the post soon afterwards, then he set up Lewis Miley to become Newcastle United's youngest ever Champions League goalscorer.
Yeah, I didn't really know that, to be honest, but yeah, it's a great feeling being the youngest scorer. That's a dream come true, really, and scoring my first goal in the Champions League couldn't be better, really.
It would have felt better if it had been the winner, but Malik Chow was foiled by a good save, Jacob Murphy was unlucky to hit the post, and set pieces aren't the Magpies' only problem. Conceding late goals is also an issue, and Leverkusen equalised in the 88th minute.
I know it's a frustration, not just for me, but for the players and for everybody, because we're costing ourselves at the moment.
One other note, Joe Linton's departure due to injury. He's presumably a doubt for the next game, which is, of course, the derby at Sunderland.
My first communication to the players on the derby was tonight. The build-up to this game was all about this game, and it has to be, and rightly so. But as soon as the game ends and we focus on the next one, the importance of this game was... I had to make that clear to all of the players, and there'll be some new players that maybe don't understand it as well as others. So we'll use whatever methods we can in the next few days to make sure that everyone enters the pitch fully aware of the importance.
So it's the derby next, but for now, Newcastle United can reflect on a European job pretty well done that was nearly a job very well done.
So two questions emerged from last night. Where does this leave Newcastle in the Champions League, Simon? Where does it leave them ahead of Sunday's derby at Sunderland in the Premier League? That was almost fighting talk there already from Eddie.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, let's do the Champions League first. The competition, which now incidentally has the biggest league table in world football because it contains 36 teams. This is the top, and you can see Newcastle in 12th place. If they can get into the top 8, they go straight through to the knockouts, and they still could, but obviously drawing and not winning last night was a setback. But as long as they finish in the top 24, they reach the playoff round, which is more realistic. They need a win to guarantee that. They've got 2 games left, and I think they'll do it. As for Sunday, look, Newcastle have put miles on the clock. They've travelled abroad and played a high-stakes game, whereas Sunderland have had the whole week to prepare. But interesting to note, the Magpies have already played away twice in the Champions League this season, and on both occasions, they won in the Premier League the following weekend. Look, I'm not saying they're going to win again, but I just don't think last night in Leverkusen will be a huge factor on Sunday.
No, it's very different, this one, isn't it? More on that tomorrow, I'm sure. Simon, for now, thank you.
Now, statistically, many of us are living longer. Did you know, in fact, that there are now more than 600,000 people in the UK who are aged 90 or older? Well, that works out at 1 person in every 100. ITV's Tonight programme has spent months filming with some extraordinary people, all with more than 9 decades of life experience, to hear a bit about their wisdom and get some guidance for the rest of us.
I have had a blissful life. What I feel I do have, which is an enormous advantage, is that I happen to do something which leaves something behind afterwards.
Life is about making a difference. I think myself as a bee sometime, still buzzing around and seeing if he can make a little bit more honey. And it's only one bee that makes the honey.
To be windy, I won't be around forever.
My legacy is up to you. Do you care enough?
Well, a taster of the programme finished there with Dr. Margaret Bradshaw from Upper Teesdale in County Durham. We have featured on the programme before. We've filmed with her a few times, including an award-winning report by our colleague Paul Kingston, which forms part of that programme you can see this evening. Tonight's Wisdom at 90 is here at 7:30 on ITV1 and also on ITVX.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching and getting some tips for some longevity. A little bird told me, since Ross isn't here, that it could be pretty wet and a bit of a washout this weekend. Let's get the full forecast now. Here's Emma Jesson.
Visibility is clear today, both above and below the water. TUI sponsors ITV Tyne Tees Weather.
Hello there, hope you had a good day today. It really wasn't too bad out there, was it, with a spectacular sunrise this morning. As we move forward, unsettled for the rest of the week, often windy, generally staying mild. We had a little bit of high pressure hanging on today, giving us a fine one. However, this frontal system moves through eastwards quite erratically overnight tonight. We don't see the worst of the rain on that. And then we've got some little gaps between systems, but the weekend is looking rather miserable with a warning in force for Durham and Northumberland, but more on that in just a moment. Some heavy rain expected here. Into the next few hours then, a clear start to the night, but this system starts to push in, so a bit more cloud, a little bit gusty and blustery with this precipitation as well, and of course that holds our temperatures up, so it's not going to be too cold overnight. Into Friday morning, sun's up about 8:20 in the morning. Bit of a damp start to the day, but improving through the afternoon with lots of wintry sunshine developing, light winds as well, and temperatures about where they should be for the time of year. So mostly clear overnight into Saturday morning. There could be one or two spots of frost, just patchy frost in more prone spots out in the countryside, but this is the system which brings the weather warnings over the weekend, so let's take a closer look. And on Saturday, after that bright and fresh start, we see the rain moving in later on. So from 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon till 6 p.m. on Sunday, we have warnings for heavy rain, especially for parts of Northumberland and also Durham, and all parts of the patch are going to be wet and windy, but 30 to 50 millimetres of rainfall, maybe up to 100 millimetres over the highest ground under these weather warnings, and still wet and windy on Monday itself. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors ITV Tyne Tees Weather.
Told you. Thank you, Emma, and we will have plenty more ahead of the build-up to Sunday's derby.
Yeah, yellow warning for the weather right through Sunday, black and white warning, red and white warning.
Take your brolly, red and white, black and white, pink or grey, a bit of the both. National News is next.
I'll be here with the update later. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for your company.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.